Ayana was different from the moment she started school. Even as a little girl, she had a presence that could not be ignored. She was taller than most of her classmates, and her skin was a rich, dark tone that shone in the sunlight. Her hair was thick and full, naturally beautiful, but she struggled to find people who understood her. The other kids would stare at her sometimes, whisper behind her back, and call her names she didn't understand yet. To them, she was strange, a little scary even. Some of the teachers didn't notice the hurt in her eyes. They only saw her size, her strength, and the intensity in the way she looked at the world. They didn't see the sensitive, thoughtful girl inside who wanted nothing more than to be accepted. At home, Ayana was loved. Her parents always encouraged her, telling her she was special and capable of great things. Her mother would often remind her, "The world might not understand you now, but one day, they will see how amazing you are." Her father would help her practice basketball in the driveway or cheer her on as she tried running faster than anyone else in the neighborhood. At home, she was safe. She was herself. But stepping outside into school or the park was a different story. Even though Ayana was quiet, she had a fiery spirit inside her. She noticed everything. The way other children laughed at her height, the way they chose teams without including her, the way some teachers passed her over for opportunities simply because she didn't fit their idea of what a normal girl should be. Every small rejection hurt, but Ayana didn't let it show. She learned to smile politely, to nod when teachers ignored her, and to walk past the whispers of classmates without letting them see the storm inside her. In the classroom, Ayana was brilliant, but people rarely saw that side of her. She loved reading and could remember things with ease. Numbers, words, stories, they all made sense to her in a way they didn't for others. Sometimes she would answer questions that left the teacher impressed, but often, the attention went to the louder students who demanded it. Still, Ayana kept learning quietly, knowing that one day the world might have to take notice. Playtime at school was the hardest. While other children ran together, laughing and playing tag, Ayana often found herself on the sidelines. It wasn't that she didn't want friends, she longed for them. But the others didn't want someone so tall and so different in their group. They whispered about her behind her back, calling her names that made her chest tighten with sadness. At first, she cried in secret. Later, she stopped showing her emotions, wearing a mask of calm that fooled most adults into thinking she was fine. Despite the loneliness, Ayana didn't give up on herself. She loved to draw, spending hours sketching pictures of people, animals, and places she dreamed of visiting. She loved running, feeling the wind rush past her face, imagining herself flying free away from all the judgment and whispers. Every time she trained her body, whether running laps around the field or practicing basketball shots, she told herself she was preparing for the day people would see her differently. One winter day, Ayana's school organized a group activity in the gym. It was supposed to be fun, but as usual, Ayana ended up alone. She watched as other kids formed teams, whispering and giggling together. One boy, taller than most, looked at her and shook his head, clearly deciding she didn't belong. It stung, but instead of walking away, Ayana walked to the side of the court and began practicing shots on her own. Every ball that hit the basket was a small victory she claimed just for herself. She felt the first stirrings of pride, a quiet voice inside saying, "You are enough even if no one else sees it." At home that evening, Ayana's mother noticed the sadness still lingering in her eyes. "I know it's hard," she said softly, sitting beside her on the couch. "People might not understand you now. They might even fear you because you're different. But never forget who you are. One day they will regret underestimating you." Ayana nodded silently, feeling comforted by her mother's words but unsure how the world would change. The months went by, and the teasing continued. Sometimes children would trip her on purpose during recess, or they would make jokes about her being too tall or too strong. Yet each time Ayana grew a little stronger inside. She learned to walk taller, to look people in the eye, to carry herself with a quiet confidence even when her heart was pounding. She learned that the pain of rejection could be transformed into determination, that every time someone doubted her, she had a choice, to crumble or to rise. Ayana chose to rise. She began noticing small victories. One teacher finally called on her to help organize a class project. Another student asked for her advice on a difficult problem. At first it felt strange, almost unreal, that people were reaching out. Ayana was cautious, remembering all the times she had been pushed aside. But she slowly realized that she could let her talent and her kindness shine. and the world would start to respond. Outside of school, Ayana spent time discovering new interests. She joined the library reading club, where no one judged her height or her appearance. She discovered stories of women and girls who had been underestimated, who had fought against the world's unfair labels, and who had succeeded because they believed in themselves. Each story planted a seed inside her, a promise that one day she too would change how the world saw her. Ayana also started running more seriously. Every morning before the sun rose, she would jog around her neighborhood, feeling the cool air on her face. She ran not just to be fast, but to feel free, to feel like no one could hold her down. The other kids still whispered, but the whispers didn't reach her in the early morning hours. She was alone with her thoughts, alone with her dreams, and in that solitude she began to imagine the life she wanted. School events remained difficult, but Ayana's determination became visible. Teachers started noticing her effort in sports and academics, and some students, though hesitant, began to respect her. Still, the social walls remained high. Invitations to parties or sleepovers were rare. Comments about her being different or intimidating continued. Yet Ayana no longer allowed these small cruelties to define her. She learned that her worth was not in the acceptance of others, but in her own commitment to herself. Her parents noticed the change too. Her father would say, "Look at you, training every day, keeping your grades up, helping at home. You're building something special." Her mother would smile and remind her that the world might take time to catch up, but it always does eventually. Ayana began to believe them. She didn't need to be liked by everyone. She needed to be true to herself. By the end of the year, Ayana had transformed in ways only she could see. She was still tall, still different, but there was a new confidence in the way she walked down the hallway. She no longer flinched when whispers followed her. She didn't hide her laughter or her passion for running, basketball, or drawing. And though she still longed for friends, she realized that even if the world didn't fully accept her yet, she could be proud of who she was becoming. Ayana's story at this stage was not about victory in the eyes of others. It was about the quiet strength she carried, the determination that grew inside her each day, and the resilience she built against a world that didn't understand her. She was learning the most important lesson of all, that being different was not a curse, it was a gift. And one day, the same world that had pushed her aside would have to take notice of the remarkable girl she was becoming. Every night, as she closed her eyes, she imagined the day when people would stop judging her by her height, her skin, or her quiet ways. She imagined the day when her talent, her courage, and her heart would shine so brightly that no one could ignore her. And with each morning run, each drawing, each study session, she silently promised herself that she would get there, no matter how long it took. Even though she was still alone in many ways, Ayana had begun a journey that would change her forever. She was no longer just the tall black girl that people whispered about or misunderstood. She was someone who was learning to stand tall not just in height but in spirit, someone who would soon make the world regret ever underestimating her. And in her heart, a quiet fire burned brighter every day, a fire that would not be extinguished until she reached the life she dreamed of. High school brought a whole new set of challenges for Ayana. The hallways felt bigger, the voices louder, and the whispers sharper. Every day, she walked into classrooms knowing that people were already making judgments before they even spoke to her. Some students stared at her, some laughed behind her back, and others avoided her completely. To them, she was still that tall, strong girl who didn't seem to fit in, the one they had already labeled as different. But Ayana had changed inside. She was no longer just the girl who felt lonely. She was learning to turn the world's judgment into fuel for her own growth. The teasing became more direct. Some classmates would call her names meant to hurt, and at times it made her want to disappear. They would mimic the way she walked or whispered to each other about her height, as if it were a flaw instead of a gift. On particularly hard days, she would sit alone under a tree in the schoolyard, tracing patterns in the dirt, wishing she could just blend into the ground and be invisible. But even in those moments of sadness, Ayana's spirit refused to break. She knew she had to keep moving, keep proving to herself that she mattered even if the world didn't see it yet. Ayana found solace in sports. She joined the basketball and track teams, even though some students tried to discourage her. "You're too tall," they would say. "You won't fit in the team." But Ayana had learned that people often fear what they don't understand, and she decided she wouldn't let their opinions stop her. Every practice became a battle not against others but against the doubt inside herself. She ran faster, jumped higher, and trained harder than anyone expected. The gym became her safe space, a place where her height was an advantage and her strength a gift. Her dedication didn't go unnoticed by the coaches. They saw potential in her that others had overlooked for years. Her speed on the track was unmatched, and on the basketball court, her ability to block shots and score points amazed her teammates. Slowly, some of the students who had mocked her began to notice her talent. Some even tried to befriend her. Though Ayanna was careful with her trust, years of being pushed aside had taught her to protect herself, to let people prove they were genuine before letting them close. Academically, Ayanna shone as well. She had always loved reading and learning, and now in high school, she began to excel in ways that left her teachers impressed. She asked thoughtful questions, completed assignments with care, and often helped other students who struggled. Yet some teachers still misunderstood her quiet nature, thinking she was arrogant or uninterested. But Ayanna didn't mind. She wasn't seeking approval from everyone. She only needed to know that she was capable of achieving her goals. At home, Ayanna's parents continued to be her anchor. They noticed her struggles and celebrated her victories, big and small. Her mother would often say, "People might not understand you now, but your time will come. They will see how strong and brilliant you are." Her father encouraged her to keep practicing, to keep pushing her limits, and to never let anyone tell her what she could or couldn't do. Their support was her shield against the harshness of the world. Social life remained difficult. School dances, parties, and gatherings were often invitations she didn't receive. Watching her peers enjoy these events while she remained on the outside sometimes brought tears she couldn't fully hide. But Ayanna refused to let loneliness define her. She focused on building skills, achieving small victories in sports and academics, and finding joy in the things she could control. Over time, she realized that her worth was not determined by invitations or popularity, but by her own actions and determination. The struggle wasn't only external. Ayanna had moments of self-doubt. She questioned whether she would ever be truly accepted or understood. She wondered if people would always see her first as different or intimidating, instead of recognizing her heart and her abilities. During late nights, she would write in her journal, pouring out her fears, frustrations, and dreams. Writing became a way for her to process her emotions and remind herself that her journey was her own. Despite the challenges, Ayanna began finding allies. A few classmates who had initially kept their distance started to approach her, asking questions about running or basketball. Teachers began to notice her dedication, often calling on her for leadership roles in projects or sports events. These small gestures, while minor to others, were monumental to Ayanna. They were signs that the world could change even if slowly, and that her perseverance was beginning to pay off. One memorable day during track practice, Ayanna faced a challenge that tested her determination like never before. A new student, known for being fast and competitive, joined the team. Many expected Ayanna to falter, to lose her edge. But instead, she pushed herself harder, racing not just to compete but to prove to herself that she could overcome obstacles. She finished the practice in record time, and even her toughest teammates looked at her with newfound respect. That day, Ayanna realized something important. Her strength didn't come from others' approval, but from her own refusal to give up. Her growth wasn't just physical or academic, it was emotional too. Ayanna began learning how to navigate relationships, how to set boundaries with people who were unkind, and how to embrace those who were genuine. She started mentoring younger students who were also struggling with bullying or loneliness, offering them guidance and encouragement. Helping others gave her a sense of purpose and reinforced the lesson she had been learning for years, that kindness, courage, and resilience were more powerful than fear or judgment. As the years progressed, Ayanna's confidence grew steadily. She learned to hold her head high in the hallways, to walk with poise, and to speak with assurance when she had something to say. Her classmates began to notice the change, some in awe, others in surprise. The girl they had once dismissed as intimidating or strange was now someone who commanded respect, not through arrogance, but through her actions and the quiet strength she carried. Even as Ayanna gained recognition in sports and academics, she never lost the humility that made her relatable and kind. She remembered the years of loneliness, the whispers, the isolation, and used those memories to fuel empathy for others. She volunteered in school programs, helped organize events, and became a role model for students who felt overlooked. Her journey was no longer just about proving herself. It was about lifting others as she climbed, showing that strength could be compassionate and that success didn't have to come at the expense of kindness. By the time she reached the final year of high school, Ayanna had transformed in ways that went beyond the physical. She was no longer the quiet, isolated girl who spent hours alone on the sidelines. She had become a force of determination, intelligence, and resilience. People still noticed her height and her presence, but now those qualities were admired rather than feared. She had turned what once made her feel different into the very thing that set her apart, something that others could look up to, literally and figuratively. Despite the progress, Ayanna remained grounded. She understood that challenges would continue, that not everyone would change their perceptions, and that life would always have obstacles. But she also understood that she was equipped to face them. Each struggle, each moment of doubt had taught her patience, perseverance, and self-belief. She had learned that the journey was just as important as the destination, and that every step forward, no matter how small, was a victory in itself. Looking back, Ayanna realized that her high school years had been both painful and transformative. The teasing and exclusion had forced her to confront her insecurities, but they had also sparked a determination that would carry her through the rest of her life. She had discovered the power of self-reliance, the importance of inner strength, and the value of staying true to herself no matter what others thought. Ayanna's story during these years was not about instant success or sudden recognition. It was about growth, resilience, and the quiet victories that often go unnoticed. She had learned to find joy in her own achievements, to celebrate small wins, and to trust that the world would eventually catch up to the person she was becoming. The girl who had once been pushed aside, misunderstood, and labeled as different was now preparing for a future where she would make her mark, on her own terms. And deep down, Ayanna knew that this was only the beginning. The struggles she faced, the pain she endured, and the determination she cultivated were all shaping her for something bigger. She didn't yet know exactly what the future held, but she was ready to face it. She had learned that being different was not a weakness, but a strength, and with each passing day, she felt the first stirrings of a confidence that would soon change the way the world saw her. A confidence that would eventually make everyone regret underestimating her. Ayanna had spent years feeling invisible, overlooked, and misunderstood, but everything started to change the day of the statewide sports competition. It was the first time she had qualified for an event so big, and the excitement mixed with nerves in her chest like a storm. She had trained tirelessly, running in the early mornings, practicing every basketball move until it felt natural, and pushing herself past limits that once seemed impossible. Now all of that effort was about to be tested in front of thousands of eyes, many of which belonged to people who had once doubted her. The day began with tension. Ayanna arrived at the stadium and felt her heart pounding as she looked around. There were athletes from every corner of the state, each confident and prepared. Some of them looked at her and seemed to underestimate her, perhaps because she was quiet and reserved, but Ayanna didn't care. She knew she had worked harder than many of them. She reminded herself of every early morning, every moment of ridicule, every time she had been told she wasn't enough. She let those memories fuel her determination instead of dragging her down. When it was her turn to compete in the first track event, the stadium was full of cheering crowds. Ayanna lined up at the starting line, her legs tense, her breath steady. The gun went off and she ran like she had never run before. The wind hit her face, her muscles burned, but she didn't stop. Each step was a declaration that she belonged, that she had earned this moment. By the time she crossed the finish line, she had not only won but set a new record. The crowd erupted in applause, and for the first time in a long time Ayanna felt seen. Not just by strangers in the stands, but by herself. She had proven to herself that all the hard work, all the lonely hours had been worth it. The next events were just as intense. In basketball, she played with precision, speed, and strength that left opponents surprised. Coaches from other schools whispered to each other, clearly impressed, and some of the students who had once avoided her now watched with admiration. Ayanna felt a mixture of pride and disbelief. She had never expected this kind of recognition so quickly, but she also remembered the years of struggle and knew that this was just the beginning. One competition could not erase everything she had endured, but it was a turning point. After the events, Ayanna was approached by some of her former classmates from high school. They were awkward, hesitant and unsure how to speak to her after years of ignoring or teasing her. Some offered compliments, others asked questions about her training, and a few even apologized for the way they had treated her. Ayana listened carefully. She had learned that forgiveness was a gift, but it was not something she owed to anyone. She nodded politely, thanked them, and continued focusing on her goals. Her priority was never to make them see her as superior. It was to continue growing and proving to herself that she could achieve anything she set her mind to. That evening, Ayana reflected on the day's events while sitting quietly in her hotel room. She realized that the competition had not only tested her physical abilities but had also tested her confidence, her resilience, and her ability to believe in herself despite years of doubt. She thought about all the times she had felt invisible, all the times she had been called names or ignored, and she smiled softly. Those experiences, painful as they had been, had prepared her for this moment. Without them, she might never have found the strength to push past fear, to rise above expectations, or to shine when it mattered most. Ayana's success in the competition brought her attention beyond the stadium. Local newspapers featured her story, praising her talent and dedication. Social media buzzed with videos of her running and playing, and people who had never met her were inspired by her determination. For the first time, Ayana saw that her uniqueness, the height and strength that had once been criticized, was now being celebrated. What had been a source of discomfort and ridicule had transformed into a symbol of excellence and possibility. But Ayana didn't let the attention distract her from her larger goals. She knew that success in one competition was temporary, and that continued effort and perseverance were necessary to sustain it. She returned home with a renewed sense of purpose, determined to keep working, keep training, and keep striving for excellence in all areas of her life. The validation she received was encouraging, but it was not the reason she worked hard. Her motivation came from a deeper place, the desire to honor herself, to achieve her potential, and to never again feel powerless or invisible. School life began to shift as well. Teachers who had once overlooked her now sought her input in projects and leadership roles. Some students approached her for advice, hoping to learn from her discipline and experience. Ayana, cautious but gracious, began sharing her insights, guiding others and encouraging younger students to believe in themselves. She realized that her journey had given her not only skill and confidence but also empathy. She understood the pain of being excluded, and she wanted to ensure that others would not have to endure the same isolation. One of the most important lessons Ayana learned during this period was the power of choice. She discovered that she could choose how to respond to people who had once rejected her. She could choose to be bitter, to lash out, or to hold grudges, but instead she chose to focus on growth, kindness, and self-improvement. By making that choice, she felt liberated. She was no longer defined by the opinions of others. She was defined by her actions, her determination, and her commitment to herself. Her family continued to be a source of unwavering support. Her parents attended every event they could, cheering loudly and celebrating each milestone, no matter how small. They reminded her that achievements were important, but character, humility, and kindness mattered even more. Their guidance helped Ayana stay grounded, ensuring that her rising success did not lead to arrogance or pride. Instead, she remained humble, focused, and eager to continue learning. As Ayana approached the end of the year, she began planning for the future. College applications, scholarships, and long-term goals filled her mind, but she also thought about the impact she wanted to make on the world. She wanted to use her experiences to inspire others, to show that being different was not a limitation but a strength. She wanted to be a role model for girls who had been overlooked, teased, or underestimated, just as she had been. Her success had given her a platform, and she intended to use it responsibly. Despite her growing achievements, Ayana remained grounded in her values. She continued her early morning runs, her rigorous basketball practices, and her commitment to academics. She continued helping her community, mentoring younger students and volunteering whenever possible. Her life was full of responsibilities, challenges, and opportunities, but she embraced each one with the same quiet determination that had carried her through years of isolation. The recognition Ayana received also began to change the perceptions of those around her. Former classmates who had once mocked or ignored her now approached with admiration and curiosity. Teachers who had overlooked her potential began seeking her advice. Even strangers expressed respect for her achievements. Yet Ayana remained cautious. She understood that admiration alone did not define her worth, and she was careful to focus on her personal growth rather than seeking validation. One of the most significant moments of this transformation occurred during a regional awards ceremony. Ayana was called to the stage to receive recognition for her athletic achievements. As she stepped forward, the audience erupted in applause. She looked out at the crowd, recognizing some of the faces that had once doubted or dismissed her. For a brief moment, she felt a mixture of triumph and vindication. But more importantly, she felt a profound sense of self-respect. This was not about revenge or proving others wrong. It was about honoring the years of hard work, perseverance, and resilience that had brought her to this point. Ayana's breakthrough during this period was not limited to tangible achievements. She also experienced an internal transformation. She began to feel more confident in social settings, more assertive in pursuing opportunities, and more capable of navigating the complexities of high school life. The girl who had once hidden on the sidelines had become someone who could stand tall, speak her mind, and inspire others through both words and actions. By the end of the year, it was clear that Ayana was no longer just the quiet, towering girl that others had feared or ignored. She had become a symbol of determination, resilience, and self-belief. People who had once underestimated her now looked to her for guidance, inspiration, and leadership. And through it all, Ayana remained humble, grounded, and focused on the next steps of her journey. This chapter of her life marked a pivotal turning point. The experiences of exclusion, ridicule, and doubt had shaped her, but they no longer defined her. Instead, they fueled her ambition, sharpened her focus, and strengthened her resolve. Ayana had learned that true success was not measured solely by recognition or accolades, but by the ability to rise above challenges, embrace one's uniqueness, and inspire others along the way. As Ayana looked ahead to the future, she understood that her journey was only beginning. She had overcome a significant chapter of struggle and emerged stronger, more confident and more determined than ever. The world had begun to take notice, but more importantly, Ayana had taken notice of herself. She had discovered the power that had always existed within her, the power to turn pain into motivation, exclusion into growth, and differences into strengths. And she knew with quiet certainty that the next chapters of her life would reveal just how far she could go. Ayana's high school years had taught her many lessons, but entering college was a whole new challenge. She was no longer just the girl who had worked hard in her small town. She was stepping into a world full of opportunities, but also competition, new faces, and unfamiliar challenges. Her confidence had grown, but she knew she had to adapt to a bigger environment. College was a chance not just to shine in sports or academics, but to grow as a person, a leader, and a role model for others. From the first day, Ayana stood out. She was taller than most students, with a strong presence that commanded attention, but she carried herself with humility and grace. Many people were curious about her, some admiring, some unsure how to approach her. Unlike in her past, she no longer felt intimidated or small. She walked into classrooms and dorms knowing that she belonged, that she had earned her place. And slowly people began to see not just her height or appearance, but her intelligence, kindness, and determination. Academically, Ayana excelled. She chose subjects that challenged her and pushed herself to learn as much as possible. Professors quickly noticed her focus and work ethic. She participated in discussions, shared insights, and helped organize study groups for students who needed support. Unlike before, she was not overlooked. Her ideas and contributions were respected. Her confidence in the classroom reflected the years of struggle she had overcome. And every time she answered a question or helped a peer, she quietly proved to herself how far she had come. Sports remained a vital part of Ayana's life. She joined the college track and basketball teams, and her dedication continued to impress coaches and teammates alike. She trained tirelessly, often putting in extra hours to refine her skills. Her teammates admired her not just for her talent, but for her discipline, her patience, and her ability to encourage others. Ayana had learned that being a leader was not about demanding attention. It was about setting an example, helping others grow, and inspiring them to do their best. Outside of sports and academics, Ayana began to explore other interests. She joined volunteer programs, mentoring programs, and community initiatives. She shared her story with younger students who had been overlooked or bullied, encouraging them to believe in themselves. Many students who had never felt strong, confident, or capable found hope in her words. Ayana's experiences had given her empathy, and she used it to help others. She understood what it felt like to be different, to be underestimated, and she wanted to make sure no one else had to feel the same. Isolation, she had felt. One of Ayana's most significant moments in college came when she was asked to lead a campus initiative focused on youth empowerment. She was hesitant at first, remembering how shy she had been when younger, how cautious she had to be with trust. But her parents' words echoed in her mind. "You are stronger than you think, and you have the power to make a difference." With determination, she accepted the role. She organized workshops, mentorship programs, and community events, focusing on helping students build confidence, set goals, and overcome challenges. Watching the participants grow and succeed gave Ayana a sense of fulfillment she had never experienced before. Socially, Ayana also experienced transformation. She had learned to navigate relationships with care and authenticity. Some of the students who had once avoided her now approached with genuine interest in friendship. She chose carefully whom to trust, building meaningful connections rather than seeking approval from everyone. Ayana discovered that friendships based on respect, shared values, and encouragement were far more rewarding than shallow popularity. She laughed more freely, shared her thoughts openly, and began to enjoy social life without fear or hesitation. Through it all, Ayana never lost her humility. She remembered the years of loneliness, the moments of ridicule, and the times when she had felt invisible. Those experiences became a source of strength rather than bitterness. She remained approachable, kind, and willing to help others, understanding that true leadership was not about being admired, but about lifting others up. People respected her not only for her achievements but for her character, her authenticity, and the quiet confidence she carried. Ayana's presence began to shift the culture around her. Students who had initially judged others by appearances started to change their perspectives. They saw that strength came in many forms, not just physical but mental, emotional, and moral. Teachers and administrators recognized her contributions, not just in sports and academics but in her leadership, empathy, and the positive influence she had on her peers. Ayana's journey demonstrated that overcoming challenges, staying true to oneself, and working hard could inspire others to grow as well. Despite her many responsibilities, Ayana continued to set personal goals. She wanted to maintain her academic excellence, improve her athletic performance, and expand her impact on the community. Every morning she would wake early, run, study, and plan her day. She kept a journal where she recorded her progress, reflected on her experiences, and reminded herself of her purpose. This discipline allowed her to balance the demands of college life without feeling overwhelmed. One of the most rewarding aspects of this period was mentoring younger students. Ayana would often meet with high school or college students who were struggling with self-confidence or facing prejudice. She shared her story honestly, describing the years of isolation, teasing, and self-doubt she had endured. She explained how she had turned those challenges into motivation and encouraged them to believe in their potential. Watching these students grow, gain confidence, and succeed brought Ayana a profound sense of joy and fulfillment. She realized that her journey was not just about her success, but about inspiring a ripple effect of strength and determination in others. Ayana also began to embrace her identity more fully. She celebrated her heritage, her height, and her natural beauty. What once had been a source of insecurity, the very features that set her apart, became symbols of pride and power. She experimented with style, spoke openly about self-love, and shared her journey of acceptance with others. Her authenticity inspired those around her, and she discovered that people were drawn to her confidence and genuine personality. As the years progressed, Ayana became a recognized figure on campus. She received awards for leadership, service, and athletics. She was invited to speak at events, share her story in workshops, and lead initiatives that empowered students. Yet, despite the recognition, Ayana remained grounded. She remembered the struggles that had shaped her and used them as a compass to guide her actions. She understood that true influence came not from accolades but from the positive impact one could make on others' lives. By the time she approached her final year of college, Ayana had transformed completely. She was no longer the girl who had once been feared, ignored, or misunderstood. She had become a confident, inspiring leader, someone who could lift others as she climbed. People admired her achievements, yes, but more importantly, They admired her resilience, her humility, and her unwavering commitment to being herself. The girl who had once been pushed aside had now become someone others looked up to, not only for her success but for the way she carried herself with grace and purpose. Ayana's story during this period was about more than personal triumph. It was about transformation and influence. She learned that real strength came from embracing who you are, overcoming obstacles with determination, and helping others along the way. She discovered that success is most meaningful when it is shared, and when it inspires growth in those around you. And she understood that being different was never a weakness. It was a gift, one that, when nurtured, could create lasting impact. Even as graduation approached, Ayana remained focused on the future. She had experienced recognition, respect, and personal growth, but she knew her journey was far from over. She wanted to continue inspiring others, building communities and creating opportunities for those who felt unseen or undervalued. Her college years had shown her that perseverance, humility, and compassion were more powerful than fear or judgment, and she intended to carry those lessons into every chapter of her life. Through all of this, Ayana never forgot the quiet girl she had once been, the one who had walked alone, who had cried in secret, who had felt invisible. That girl's experiences remained at the core of her character, shaping the empathy, patience, and determination that defined her. Ayana realized that her past struggles were not something to be ashamed of. They were the foundation of her strength, the reason she could connect with others, and the fuel for her ongoing journey. By the end of this period, Ayana had truly become a symbol of transformation. She had turned every moment of doubt, every instance of exclusion, and every whisper of judgment into a step toward growth. She was not just a successful student or athlete. She was a leader, a mentor, and a source of inspiration for countless others. The same world that had once dismissed her now looked to her for guidance, insight, and hope. And through it all, Ayana remained humble, grounded, and committed to making a difference, proving that real strength is not just measured in personal achievements but in the ability to lift others and create positive change. Ayana's college years marked a turning point in her life, a period of self-discovery, growth, and transformation that would shape the person she would become. She learned that resilience, kindness, and determination were powerful tools, capable of turning even the most challenging experiences into opportunities for growth. And as she prepared to step into the next stage of her life, she knew that her journey was far from over. The lessons she had learned, the skills she had developed, and the impact she had made would continue to guide her, helping her navigate future challenges and inspiring others to believe in their own strength and potential. Ayana had come a long way from the quiet, lonely girl who had spent her childhood and school years feeling invisible. She had grown not only in strength and skill but also in confidence, character, and purpose. Her journey had been filled with challenges, setbacks, and moments of doubt, but through each of them, she had discovered something important: that true power comes from believing in yourself, staying resilient, and helping others along the way. Now, as she entered the next phase of her life, she was ready to make an even bigger impact.